Paul, we need to spend money rapidly, talking specifically to Nigeria, which is our home economy here. But again, look at the global debt market. When there are problems, and when we saw all of this coming, right now we have 187 trillion US dollars, according to the IMF. Global debt as at the end of last year, of 2017, US debt is 22 trillion US dollars. Trump's administration added about 2 trillion dollars in debt to the U.S. national debt within just 2 years, and that is just midterm. Nigeria, we're looking at about 25 billion US dollars in both local and foreign debt as we speak. So we need to go back more borrowing because we cannot generate enough locally because we don't have that real productive economy except crude oil. So where do we find this money to spend?
I think the time for preparing for global meltdown was 10 years ago, at the end of the one we experienced in between 2007 to 2008, and extended in some economies to 2009. We have not really prepared for it. But with what we have, if you go by federal government budget, about 53% of what will be spent will be coming from crude oil. The good news, the NNPC GMD had mentioned that oil output has gone to 2.9, which means Nigeria has successfully saved the quantity line. We are now faced with price line, which of course with the output America is having, we might not be comfortable with $60 per barrel. But head or tail, the concern is how do we spend more money, not just on the budget, but on capital components of the budget. With capital component, Nigerians and indeed many people that are contractors and people that work for them, we still have more money and more fund in order for the economy to grow. But the biggest challenge, which I've mentioned on several platforms right now, is not 2019 election. The biggest challenge for Nigeria economy is revenue generation. And I've mentioned what government should do, perhaps to set targets. The places where we are spending a lot of money in the budget for federal and state, how do we get money back from those things? It is not enough for us to say because they are job-driven, because these places where we are spending job, they are recurrent in nature, therefore we should not expect anything in returns. Serious economics have expected some level of returns, either directly or indirectly, from the economy. So I will give you an instance. We are spending about 147 billion naira on education, on recurrent expenditure. Only about 146 or so, only about 47 on capital expenditure. The question is, as we speak, why is he on strike? Because some of the demands, according to them, are still not met. So my suggestion to government, particularly talking about federal government now, is what KPI have we given to professors, lecturers, etc., such that part of the fund that is given to them, they could do research and sell some of their research work to companies. By implication, connecting the academic section or education to industry, so that at the end of the day, if there is global economic meltdown, why is it going to affect us? Because our marginal propensity to import is high. Because marginal propensity to import is high, we're going to rely solely on, or majorly, I beg your pardon, on imported good. And if there is weakened naira, what it means is that the sweat, what it took you to buy, say, a television last week, it might need, last year, it might need to cost you ×2, depending on the level of depreciation the local currency would have. That means you have to sweat more, you have to work more. Even that means the minimum wage labor is asking for, in no time, if this happens, which looks unavoidable, if it happens, you might need to be asking for another minimum wage, because the value of the minimum wage you're asking for comes to zero. It becomes flat almost automatically. So the point is, how do we have robust policy for both import substitution and export promotion?
Paul, that's one good.
At the same time.
That's one good point.
From the look of things, it appears.
That's one good point, Paul, which was also about the warnings that Nigeria has gotten from at least the monetary policy authority, the central bank governor, the MPC. Again, you talk about our over-dependence on imported items when these goods could be produced locally. Do you think we need to tighten the noose a little bit more on our imported goods so that we can ratchet up more and very quickly on locally produced goods or items? Do you think we need a bit more from the fiscal side?
I agree totally with the central bank and also with the monetary policy makers. I agree completely with them. Things that could be produced locally should be produced locally, even if it costs a bit more. I think we should keep producing it. Why? Because when you buy anything from another country, 3 decisions are taken. The first, you give out your money. It has implication on your foreign reserve. Number 2, you get product. And when you get product, you seem to be happy. It will turn to miserability if the product you are getting is not produced as good. Lastly, which is on the sad note, is that you give away job. In as much as they keep getting those products to you, you keep sustaining their job market. And that is the big deal there. Mark you, someone that is not a job may not be able to get money. And if he's not getting money, the economy is not lubricated. So if you keep importing, it's not that we should produce everything we need locally. But if you look at our if you look at our import pattern, you see that there's a lot of things that Nigeria is importing, like fish, etc., etc. It's all there on the list. Some things that Nigeria could produce locally, but because of the unusual taste for consumption and also infrastructure that is not available for manufacturers to improve their output, Nigerians are forced in some cases, some optionally, to consume foreign product. I think all stakeholders, private sector and government, need to work on this as soon as possible in order for us to start producing more. Countries that may not be affected. I tell you, with all of this crisis, China says they might not necessarily be affected because of huge vote and change its focus from global economy to another internal economy. How well that will work, only time will tell.
Paul Alaje, thank you very much. Senior economist from SPM Professionals. Thank you very much, Nigeria. You have been warned. But how do you produce without electricity that is stable and at affordable prices? Let's talk about the power play for the power sector in the new year. This is a decision time. We'll be back in 2.